Welcome, everyone. Today, we're delving into how modern object storage can be a game changer for businesses. I'm your host, Stephen Tijamulia, and we're fortunate to have Brenna Buuck, a developer evangelist from MinIO, with us today. She's going to help us understand these technologies from a business perspective. Brenna, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to.
Well, for the audience to get started, can you tell us a little bit about your role at MinIO? What do you do? It sounds such a cool role, developer evangelist. Let's find out a little bit more. I'd love to know.
Sure. So I came from the data engineering world. I was a data engineer for 10 plus years, writing pipeline, building lakes, actually getting my hands into code. I'm a Python girly. Um, and I joined MinIO to become a developer advocate. So I listen to what my fellow developers are saying about our product and how they're implementing. That's actually my favorite part. So if you've got a great story about how you're using MinIO, or even a terrible story about how you're using MinIO, I can take that feedback and write about it, speak about it in conferences, and talk to my fellow developers in a way that I hope connects more deeply than just those initial very surface level conversations people usually have in tech.
Perfect. We're going to love to hear a lot of your advice today. But before we dive in, can you tell us a little bit about what MinIO does? What's the company focus on? Give us a background for those engineering managers who don't know very much about it.
Yeah, sure. So MinIO is open source performant object storage. It's a drop-in replacement for Amazon S3, but you can deploy it anywhere on-prem, in colos, data centers, even on edge. And of course, any of the major cloud providers like Amazon, GCP, and Azure. And the only thing we do is object storage. And because of that relentless focus on that really singular purpose, we've got a huge following in the developer community. We've got over 2 exabytes of data under management globally, and we've done 1.6 billion with a B Docker pulls in aggregate. That's about 1.6 million a day, and that's really, you said it, it's really surprising given that we're just object storage software.
Well, it sounds really cool, and we're going to dive into that in this discussion today. Two other questions I have to get to know you a little bit better. I know when you're not doing your developer evangelism, helping people with their data infrastructure, what kind of hobbies you have that get you energized?
Yeah, sure. I love to read, and I love to do fabric art. So I'm a big cross stitcher. I think it actually all comes down to my love of data, because in cross stitch you cross stitch in rows and columns. So you can take the girl out of data, but you can't take the data out of the girl, I guess.
That's a good one. Sounds great. And then, since you love to read so much, is there a favorite book or film that has influenced your professional life?
And it's funny. There's too many to count with books, but for movies, there's something that really has impacted me professionally, which is Finding Nemo.
Cool.
There's a character in Finding Nemo called Dory, and what she keeps saying to herself is, keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. And I find myself repeating that often. It's an internal conversation, but I think it's really important, and professionally, when you feel like you're going in the right direction, you might be beset by setbacks, but the most important thing is just to keep moving forward. So just keep swimming when you're heading in the right direction.
Really good choice. And I'm going to tell myself that every day as well. Now let's pivot to the main topic. Today we're exploring strategies to help engineering managers harness the power of their modern data infrastructure effectively. And we appreciate you being here to discuss that topic. So diving right in, let's start with the basics. What is MinIO, and why should businesses consider it as a part of their data infrastructure strategy?
Well, so I sort of already answered that. It's modern object storage software. That's it. It's the most performant and most highly decorated object storage on the market today. We've got very nice accolades from Gartner. We've received Reader's Choice Award from Datanami every year since 2022. Um, MinIO is a background of the modern data stack. It's storage software. So we see this in the construction of modern data lakes and the use of external tables by almost every major database vendor on the market, both of which are pretty foundational to the AI initiatives that are on everyone's mind right now.
And I'm going to ask this one here. You've covered MinIO pretty well, right, in describing it. What makes it different from other data infrastructure solutions available in the market?
Yeah, sure. So MinIO is simple, it's cloud native, and it's performant. So MinIO, like I said, is the world's fastest object store. MinIO can read at 325 gigs a second and write at 177 gigs. And that's just on 32 nodes of NVMe, which is commodity hardware that anyone could buy. And speed we consider to be more than just a vanity metric, because speed is what gets you more workloads, and speed is how I could make the assertion, and how object storage indeed has done, become the backbone of the data, modern data infrastructure, because other object storage software that doesn't have these qualities just doesn't have the throughput or the IOPS to function in this way. It can't deliver the performance that AI and other data initiatives really require to be successful. And then cloud native. So MinIO was born at the same time as containerization, the same time as Kubernetes was coming up. And again, that's not something everyone can say. And being cloud native really means being optimized for the principles of the cloud, which are things like scale and automation and orchestration, because the cloud is a design principle and not a physical location. So a great many vendors will tell you that it's a physical location, but it's more of a design principle and thinking in terms of scale, automation, and containerization, which describes us the best. And of course, simple. And simplicity scales. So simplicity lets you do more with less. MinIO's entire binary is less than 100 megabytes, and that includes the user interface. So that means MinIO can be deployed with a single line of code. You can get into production in minutes, and it updates instantaneously and can do so simultaneously across all nodes. And that's a remarkable operation benefit, and one that comes directly from this concept of simplicity that's at the heart of the design of MinIO.
And MinIO, how does it play or integrate well with other existing business workflows and systems?
Yeah, great question. So MinIO uses the S3 API and S3 Select, which have become the industry standard for interacting with data and object storage. And you should be able to simply drop it in to any existing workloads and systems that you have, in most cases, just by changing the endpoint and the credentials to your MinIO deployment, which I think is pretty cool. So you've got pipeline going into something, other systems, you can just swap out. That's what drop in, means when we talk about being a drop in replacement for Amazon S3. And, I've talked a little bit, like brushed the surface about data lakes, which are really cool. But if you have an existing database or data warehouse, almost all of those systems on the market today offer support, native support, meaning support um, from the vendors themselves for external tables. If you're a Postgres fork, you might call them something different. But that's a way to interact with querying data inside object storage as if it was a table inside your database. So your data can stay in MinIO, but can connect with your data that you've got everywhere else in your database. So it's a tremendous gain in materialization, virtualization, while maintaining data security and keeping all that data. So that integration can be simple as a few menu clicks inside your existing database. It's native supported, so they make it pretty easy for you to accomplish that integration.
And let's talk about some strategic advantages to MinIO. And how does it enhance your business agility?
Yeah, sure. So my focus, because I'm a data engineer, will always be utilizing MinIO as primary storage for data purposes. In fact, that's the purpose of MinIO. That's our focus in general. But if we're talking about strategic focus and enhancing business, I will always see that through the lens of the data lake, which has in itself a tremendous enhancement to business agility. So, by consolidating all the data of your organization into one central place for usability purposes, for accessibility, for data democratization, you're always going to have a really big impact on your business. And when you rely on the market's most performant object storage software for that purpose, you're always going to have a benefit. That benefit of those data lakes is just going to extend. One other cool thing about using MinIO in particular, as I mentioned earlier, how it can be deployed on anywhere. So with MinIO, you can implement a multi-cloud or a hybrid cloud architecture quite easily. You can, for example, switch between cloud providers if you get credit for one or the other. Many times people will get, Google Cloud credits and feel the need to use them. And traditional migration efforts can take years. But with MinIO, like I said, you can deploy with a single line of code so that migration effort becomes seconds or minutes rather than years or months.
So for summarizing where we are so far, is MinIO very similar to dropping down a data lake infrastructure within your system that all the systems can store the am I saying that correctly for those listening, so they can can you summarize again what it does and then the use cases as we go on for the rest?
Yeah, sure. So MinIO is just object storage software. The use case that I'm happy to talk to you guys today is specifically about building data lakes with MinIO. So MinIO is your object storage, and that is your data lake. So you put all the data for your business inside this one central repository, MinIO, and it becomes the data lake for your entire business. What makes it a lake house, and that's sort of a pattern that we're also seeing with emerging in data, is when you take your data lake in MinIO's data lake equals data lake, right? You add a query engine on top of it, so that's like Dremio or Starbucks or ClickHouse or Snowflake or SQL Server. Those query engines or warehouses can sip off your data lake and deliver business intelligence or AI initiatives or whatever you're going to use your data for back into your business. So the lake part, we do the object storage software, and we work well in this market with all the other cloud native vendors to like they're doing the compute. So we've separated, decoupled compute and storage in a way that lets you decide which compute you want to use within your organization. And we're not particular about it. That's why we kind of repeating about flexibility and interoperability, is because we actually can work with whatever you've got and build on whatever data lake or data infrastructure you're working with today to get you into a position where you can start making the initiatives that you want to work on be successful.
And
Does that make sense?
makes total sense. And I imagine because you're separating the data lake side from the processing power, you can achieve a lot of cost efficiencies through this technology. Can you explain to us a
Yeah,
little bit about
sure.
the benefits and what can they expect by adopting this modern architecture?
Yes, sure. So we see people, businesses, organizations save up to 60% of their fees by repatriating from the cloud. So the big issue is that the big cloud vendors will charge you egress fees when you take your data out of the cloud and when you actually want to use it for AI purposes or for advanced analytics or whatever you're going to use your data for. And obviously, when you deploy on prem, when your data lake is on prem, you don't experience those egress fees. So there's money saving there. Uh, Also, you can amortize the cost of your hardware, which we don't supply hardware. This is just an example of some cost savings that you get with this type of architecture. You can amortize the cost of your hardware, which MinIO runs on, it's commodity hardware, over the course of several years. And so you know at a steady rate what your bill is going to be for your data initiatives, rather than being hit by usage spikes, which can, everybody's run a query that's taken a little bit too long or used a little bit too many resources on the cloud and gotten a really big alarming bill. With MinIO, that doesn't happen. You can make sure that you have a more steady understanding of what these initiatives is costing, and then so you can also plan for um, staffing more easily. And one of the benefits of MinIO, in terms of economic benefits, is that because it's so easy to implement, you can get done more done with less. Meaning, you can hire less people to get the work done of that you would have in the past. So we're talking less FTEs than what your data infrastructure required in the past, because it's so easy to use and implement. That's some of the key ways that MinIO can help organizations save money.
And what about scalability, right? It seems like
Oh,
you got data lake, you separate it, cost efficiency, it fits a use case that can be very expensive for customers today. You're saving money. Does it scale? What are the benefits of MinIO allowing people to scale their data lakes?
yeah, of course. So we really shine in this area. Like I said before, MinIO is cloud native. It's built for scale. So what I mean by that, with MinIO, we can scale horizontally with something called server pools. So server pools are like building blocks where each block is a separate group of nodes, each with its own compute, network, and storage. And this setup is really handy in environments where there's multiple users or groups that need their own space, like in multi-tenant configurations. In a multi-tenant configuration, each tenant gets their own cluster of server pools that are all separate, even though they're on the same physical infrastructure, on the same hardware. And so when a business needs to add more capacity, all they have to do is update the clusters with the address of the new server pool, and MinIO does the rest. And this really easy way of scaling, which is entirely infinite, but depending on your hardware, right? So we're limited by the rules of physics, the laws of physics, right? But potentially infinite really really supports growth and enables businesses to maintain high performance, the high performance standard that MinIO, has inherently, but also availabilities, both of which are really critical to businesses operationally and for customer satisfaction.
And I love the flexibility, scalability. Maybe could you stated some of that already, but can you iterate a little bit about how does MinIO support businesses in adapting to market changes? There's changes that happen. They want something that can scale and that can change with them. Give us some idea of the flexibility of MinIO.
Yes. So I assume by flexibility you mean like extensibility or
Yeah, or
interoperability.
if they need to decrease the usage, how flexible is it compared to other options out there that they have?
Yeah, completely flexible. So I'm going to be repeating myself a lot, but MinIO is cloud native. So that's to say that the other software built in the cloud, also cloud native, will work together with MinIO without much effort. And so when we talk about extensibility or flexibility or interoperability, it's all it takes is a look at the sheer volume of blog posts that we have talking about how MinIO can integrate with other data platforms, other modern data platforms, to see how quick and easy it is to get that relationship going. So if you want to swap out compute, that's pretty easy. We've already talked about scales. So just as easy it is to add more server pools to your cluster, you can remove them too. We make that um, quite easy to do. The point is that you want to make sure that your storage meets the demand of your data. Typically, of course, you can scale down, it's easy to do, but no one that I have ever known in data has woken up one morning and said that, oh my gosh, we have less data than we did the day before. Usually, the pattern is the growth of data day over day into these huge volumes that we're seeing right now. And we can work with either direction, and we're happy to. That's the point of scalability, is that it works in both directions. Usually only in
Yeah.
one direction, but it can go anywhere you need to.
So love it. Scale. You can deal with business changes. Let's talk a little bit about this modern infrastructure. What are the risk mitigation benefits MinIO provides in terms of data security and compliance?
Yes. So, like I said before, MinIO can be deployed on any commodity hardware, which means that you can deploy MinIO in an air-gapped environment, meaning an environment that's completely separate from other networks. You could bury your data center underground, miles underground, and surround it by barbed wire, and MinIO will still operate in the same way. And then I already have actually talked to you guys about active replication, which is an enterprise feature of MinIO. But we also support erasure code and bit rot protection on objects inside Object Store, which um, which it is pretty much the industry gold standard of data security and protection. These features mean that you can lose like entire racks of your data center and still keep your data safe. Depends on how you configure things, of course, but that really super high level, that gold standard of data protection is one that we're really proud of, and that we um, can help with your, when you talk about data security. You can be assured that when you you have your data in MinIO, it's not going anywhere. And you know what? I didn't ask this question, but when we're talking about how MinIO can save you money, the other way that data security can help save your money is that older data storage software like Hadoop required you to maintain 3 copies of your data in order to maintain data security, data protection. With MinIO, you only need 1.5 copies, and that's because of this the erasure coding and bit rot protection and the active replication, all of which work together to make sure that you have a really high standard of data protection while saving you money.
Oh,
And then, of course,
go
one more
ahead.
thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry, MinIO offers with the enterprise suite of tools a built-in KMS, which is a key management service, which is really important to maintaining like a robust and scalable encryption key management practice. So that can really help out too.
Now, super excited about this question. You have several customer success stories that you've talked to me about and that you'd be happy to share. What are some of the benefits that you've seen your customers receive because of deploying this modern day infrastructure, MinIO?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of this is just a recapture of what I've been saying and how MinIO can help these businesses. But this is actually what specific customer success stories, people that have actually implemented MinIO, and how what I'm saying is actually grounded in reality for them. So one of our customers, Rakuten, they've developed a fully virtualized cloud native mobile network. It's built on Kubernetes. It's a software defined approach that's really a departure from traditional telecom models. It uses virtualization technologies to control network functions and operations. And their aim has been to create a flexible, scalable, and cost-effective mobile network infrastructure. Inside the infrastructure that they've built, MinIO is the core object store, and it's deployed to customers under an OEM agreement. So the mobile operator uses MinIO as their persistent data store, and that, of course, that data store, because of all the features of this architecture, it needed to be cloud native, performant, resilient, and scalable features, which I've already talked to you about how MinIO is. And then after careful evaluation, the operator selected MinIO for its enterprise features, or the Rakuten, we're allowed to say their name now, which is, all the things I've been saying. So Rakuten stores all voicemail, text, and associated metadata on MinIO, all of it for the entire organization. And additionally, MinIO serves as a distributed data store for developers to build applications. So this is when we're talking about the function of a data lake. It can store all your existing data and as you build on it, but it can also be the foundation for new initiatives that as you develop them, which is, we should always be building on what we have and growing our data and making it work for us. At Rakuten, MinIO is configured to provide high performance object storage and retrieval, and also obviously the built-in data protection and data management features like versioning, active replication, and snapshots. So all the both the traditional use cases of object storage and the forward-looking way of developing your data architecture in a way that drives innovation. So it's pretty cool. It was a greenfield deployment, so they were able to get all this done from nothing, which is really cool. We talked about how MinIO can integrate, but it can also help you drive a completely new data infrastructure from scratch, which I think is really cool. We work both ways,
Yeah.
Well, just like scale. Another. Do you want to hear another one?
I'd love to hear one more. I think you had
know.
one more that you shared that has really good numbers. So please share with us with that one too, because these case studies are really good. for us to understand the value and what it does, what MinIO can do for customers.
I completely agree. I think that learning from others is how we, as human beings, drive success. So I love sharing this kind of thing, and I can talk to you all day about the benefits of MinIO, but until you see that in action with a real life company, you can reserve the right to not to believe me, right? So the other company I can talk about today is Nomura. So their initial production use case is to support value at risk. And they have an application that pulls a Dremio cube to see if there are any updates. And they're currently persisting in Dremio, and Dremio is writing down to their MinIO installation. So right now, they're creating an endpoint where they can query from. So they feel like this is an easy initial use case for us to prove out MinIO, and we're working with 50% of their hardware doing 80% of the performance. So we're using their existing hardware and proving out more performance. This is a Hadoop replacement, which is a use case that we see quite a lot. Our customers, every day are coming to us telling us that they're interested in replacing Hadoop. But by this time, I would have thought that those conversations would have petered out. But it's surprising how many technologically advanced companies are still doing this migration pattern, and we're happy to help with this because we blow Hadoop out of the water in terms of performance. And with our S3 Select capabilities, we're able to drop into to HDFS quite easily and still connect to other tools and services in the Hadoop ecosystem that sometimes people want to keep, like Hive, like Spark, if you're still, if you're a Spark implementation, or things like that. So we make it easy to do that replacement without a lot of fuss.
That's great. Were there some more other numbers that you wanted to share with us around that implementation, or did you cover all that?
I think I covered all of it.
Those two. Thanks for sharing those two great success stories. Now going into a little bit, we're talking about enterprise data lake, enterprise software. What are some? How does it help businesses maintain regulatory compliance? What are some features that MinIO has for that?
Yes, so objects in object store are immutable, just like Python. So when object store is properly configured, it can be compliant with regulations that mandate data immutability, like some SEC rules in finance, and also in healthcare. So MinIO is Cohasset certified, and our enterprise features include a complete suite of object locking capabilities. So if your organization requires that the objects be locked for a certain set amount of time, we can help you set that environment up. And also, of course, MinIO supports a server-side encryption to secure data at rest, which uses the industry-standard encryption algorithms. And this helps also comply with regulations that require data to be encrypted for protection against unauthorized access. There's also that key management system that I talked to you about later that can also help, that can help with unauthorized access and locking down your data.
Now, let's get down to an example of how customers can start deploying this in their system. You've already mentioned some case studies, but why is it important for businesses to consider building data lakes? Let's start there. You mentioned some of it, but this will help fine tune them helping building this modern infrastructures.
Yeah, sure. So building data lakes is completely crucial for businesses. And this is something I've talked about before, and actually I will probably never stop talking about, which is centralizing data and democratizing it across your organization. So making this central repository for your business makes your data easier for various teams across your organization to access it, to analyze it, and utilize and store vast volumes of data for various reasons. But we now see most typically for AI initiatives, because that's where you really need vast quantities of clean, usable data to drive those initiatives into success. Data lakes support, advanced analytics, machine learning, BI, all that stuff. Anything you need to use your data for, having it in essential stored, ready to be used is completely critical. I mean, I say this a lot, but some people want to skip right over into the benefits of their data, forgetting that infrastructure and preparing your data is just as important and like totally necessary in order to get you where you want to go, right? It's like getting into the car and entering in your into your GPS where you want to go, and not checking before you got in that you've got wheels on the car, right? MinIO is the wheels, the car, the door, the locks, the whole thing, and you're going to take it where. And of course, the data is the gas for the car, right? You got to make sure you have all that stuff. All right, so it can be really, data lakes in general can be really game changing for an organization and how they hit the market, how they're marketing and using their data itself.
And we mentioned a lot about what MinIO does, and as customers are looking to say, okay, I need to build a data lake. You told me a lot about MinIO, but repeat one more time, how does it make it easier for me to build this data lake than these other competitors out there that I may be looking
Yeah, sure.
to?
Yeah, of course. So we're just object storage software. It's your data and your lake, but MinIO makes it really easy by being easy to use. So you can, like I said, we work for any commercial commodity hardware that you have. You can deploy in minutes, using seconds, sometimes using a single Kubernetes YAML file. We integrate at a first level relationship with most modern, or if not all modern, AI and data services and tools like Dremio, like I mentioned in my example, ClickHouse, StarRocks, Snowflake. It just works out of the box, and it'll work the way you think it should, and it'll get the job done for you in the most performant way possible.
And as customers looking to deploy data lakes, MinIO is a great solution, but what are some of the challenges that they may have as they're trying to deploy it? And then how do you solve those challenges?
Yeah, sure. So if you're having trouble with your deployment, you can contact us at hello@min.io, also on our Slack community channel. And when you're actually ready to buy a subscription, MinIO offers our subnet portal. So this is a great way to maintain a relationship with MinIO. So enterprise users, subscribers, have this opportunity to have a relationship with the developers that are developing MinIO. So this is not like first level, second level, third level tiered support. You go right up to fourth level every time you interact with MinIO. You get a panic button and different levels of SLA response time, but we will work on your problem until it gets solved. We've got developers, our engineers all across the world, globally working on subnet issues. It's a priority within our organization. Everybody at MinIO is on subnet answering questions. So that's a kind of top tier level support that we offer when building out any solution with MinIO. I'm talking about data lakes because that's what I'm interested in. But however you implement MinIO for your data needs, we can help you with that, and we're happy to do it.
And I know cost advantage is a big benefit of MinIO, but as they're looking to deploy into the data lake infrastructure, sometimes they can be very costly investments. So how much does MinIO actually, how much does it save? What advantage does it have from a cost level that customers may be looking for?
Yeah, I feel like we talked about that a little bit already. But we've seen users save about 60% of their costs by repatriating from the cloud, meaning taking their data from cloud providers and returning it to their data centers or colos. So that's actually the largest cost savings that it's possible, right? We'll talk a little bit about why that is. Also, not needing as many copies of your data to maintain data security. We're talking about amortizing your hardware over the course of many years instead of getting hit with egress fees or cloud usage spikes when you're actually trying to use the data that you have in cloud storage. So we have a lot of benefits. There's one other one that's sort of on the fringe, but still relevant. Because we're so inoperable, like interoperability is part of our design, the simplicity, the cloud native ness of MinIO. It means that you can swap out not just the clouds, we talked about multi-cloud and hybrid cloud deployments, which is one thing, but you can also slide out your compute. So for example, if you find that it's cheaper for your organization to get your compute at Snowflake, you can move there. If not, you can move to Dremio. If not, you can move to StarRox. So you can use whatever tool and services that you find is the most economical or best represents the needs of your organization. And we made it work like that out of the box. So that's another way that you can cost save, but also just achieve your higher good, getting you where you want to go.
So this is excellent. We did a deep dive. I just have two more questions. The first one is when businesses are planning their investment in data lake technology, what steps should they take to get the data lakes implementation done? And then, to give us a little bit of that background.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I like that question a lot. I think about this a lot. This is actually, when I was a data engineer, most of what I did was centralizing data in data lakes. I think that's something that everybody should consider at some point, if not fully implement, because it's the future of how people organize data. But I think that when you're thinking about implementing this, you should think about three main things. So the first thing, I think you should question the purpose of what you're building for. Is it for AI? Is it for primary storage for a database? Is it part of a backup and restore policy? All of which are valid use cases. But when you really have to consider this purpose really carefully when you're in the planning stage. Secondly, I would advise people to consider the volume of data that they want to store in their data lake. So how much are you gonna store in there really dictates the amount of hardware that you will need, obviously, but also it can change the way that you interact with that data. So what compute do you need to access whatever volume of data you have? So for example, if you're using a small amount of data in MinIO, which you can, like I said, is 100 megabytes, you can fit it on in a sensor on an offshore oil rig or in a camera or whatever. Talking very tiny. So if you've got a very tiny volume of data inside that MinIO deployment, then maybe you need compute that's very like in memory that can peruse your data and object storage very quickly, like DuckDB. But if you've got a huge volume of data, like we're talking about exabytes of data, you might consider a more robust query engine like Dremio or Snowflake. So you can really consider that. The other thing I would, and the final thing that I would think about before you start building, is at what cadence or like frequency you'll will data be going into object storage, because again that will give you a sense of what kind of architecture your data lake will require, what tools and services you need to pass data into object store. Remember, we're just object storage software, but we can work with any of the major streaming platforms, Kafka, WarpStream, Red Panda, or like whatever batch services that you want to implement. We're S3 API compliant, so we can work with anybody for your ingestion. But you have to consider that when you're building your lake. And the answers to those three questions should really give your organization an idea of what kind of infrastructure, what your infrastructure should look like.
That's great, because what we've done so far is, you've given our engineering manager a good overview of MinIO, the benefits it can do, how this new modern infrastructure can be drop in. You have your data lake going. You can build off of it, develop off of it. It's scalable, cost savings. Thank you for sharing that with us today. Now, one final question is, what future trends should businesses be aware of when considering their data infrastructure strategy?
Oh, cool. I like this question a lot. So I think right now in data lakes, the coolest things are the open table formats like Iceberg, Hudi, and Delta Lake. I think those are really cool because of the advanced features that they have, like asset compliance and time travel and query optimization and all that stuff. And I also think that open standards like Apache Arrow are really exciting right now. And they offer a lot of speed and interoperability. So I think all those features, I think they're really cool and kind of like the tippy top of what's cool about data lakes right now. And obviously, performant open source object storage is right along with it.
Well, Brenna, thank you for these comprehensive insights. And to everyone who joined us today, we hope the session was very helpful, that you now understand more about MinIO, how it's a cornerstone of your data management strategy, and the foundation to help you build data lakes. We look forward to sharing more information and resources. And then, Brenna, they can reach out directly to you as well if they have any questions.
Of course, you can reach me at you can reach everyone in the company at hello@min.io, and you can reach me specifically at brenna@min.io.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time today. And I hope everyone has a great weekend. And Brenna, appreciate you as well and taking the time to inform us today.
Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about data.
Sounds good. Very well. And to that, we'll sign off.